Merry Christmas, everyone. Or as my 2-year-old daughter likes to say, Merry Crimmage. Welcome to In Context, the channel that's all about helping you better understand the Bible in its proper context. Do you have Santa Claus theology or know someone that does? Did somebody say Santa Claus? What's up, everybody? How's it going? Merry Christmas. Bro, what is Santa Claus theology? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Dane is here visiting with me today, everyone. He decided to visit his big brother for Christmas. Yeah, it was more for my niece, bro. Sure, right. So what is Santa Claus theology? Santa Claus theology comes from misunderstood verses that are often taken out of context, like Matthew 24:13, which says, "He who endures till the end shall be saved." How is that Santa Claus theology? You tell me. What does Santa Claus do every year? Santa makes a list and prepares all year to deliver gifts for everyone at Christmas time? Everyone? And what list? Well, not everyone. He delivers gifts to those who have been good, and he has a naughty or nice list. How do you get on the nice list? Well, by being nice or good. For how long? I don't know. I guess till the end of the year, just to play it safe. And what happens if they weren't good till the end of the year? Santa doesn't include their name on the nice list, which means Santa doesn't bring them gifts, which means Santa brings them coal for being bad. So what you're saying is that Santa Claus operates under a works-based gift exchange. A person has to be good, which means doing good things and not doing bad things in order to get on the nice list, and then they receive gifts at the end of the year rather than coal. Yeah, I guess so. Sounds a bit creepy when you say it like that. It's about to get worse. But that's what I mean by Santa Claus theology. There are many Christians who have fallen under this wrong way of thinking when it comes to proper biblical interpretation. So how does Santa Claus theology relate to Matthew 24:13, like you mentioned earlier? I'll explain that in just a moment, but first let's show the comparable elements in Santa Claus theology. Santa Claus equals Jesus, the naughty or nice list equals the book of life and whether you're in it or not, good and bad behavior equals good and bad works, the year equals a person's entire life, gifts equals eternal life, and coal equals hell. So people who have Santa Claus theology read the Bible like this. Jesus is coming at the end of the age to judge the world, and he will decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. There are those who call themselves Christians and want to go to heaven, but in order to prove that they are genuine Christians, whose names are written in the book of life, they must persevere and endure in faith in good works until the end of their life or until Jesus returns, whichever comes first, in order to ensure that they will receive eternal life at the final judgment rather than being sent away to the lake of fire. That's suspiciously similar. Yep. So when we hear people quoting Matthew 24:13 as a proof text that Christians must endure to the end to be saved, we know that they are talking about Santa Claus theology. They read this verse as I just described. The problem is, that's not what this verse is talking about, and Santa Claus theology is completely wrong. So what's this verse talking about then? Well, if we look at the context clues within this chapter, we see that Jesus is answering his disciples' questions about the end of the age in verse 3. This makes sense as Jesus refers to the end many times in his response, as we see in verses 6, 13, and 14. The end, within this context, does not refer to the end of one's life, but the end of a specific time of God's future judgment on earth called the Great Tribulation. The context makes clear that the tribulation is in view here, as we see in verses 9 and 29. And the phrase, "at that time" in verse 10, or "those days" in verse 22 and 29 point to the specific time that is in view. This judgment lasts for 7 years, and the back half of this time period will be the worst in all human history, which is why in verse 22 Jesus says, "Unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect," aka the nation of Israel, "those days will be cut short." Jesus is saying that those believers alive at that time who survive to the end of the 7 years will make it out at that time of judgment without dying, because Jesus himself comes back at the end of the 7 years to rescue the surviving believers from those trying to kill them and begins to officially set up his kingdom on earth as prophesied in the Old Testament. Wow, so Santa Claus theology just ignores the context? Kind of feels like it sometimes, but maybe they're just seeing things based on what they've been taught rather than letting the text speak for itself. Context is cool. Context is king. So I guess the appropriate question for anyone watching is, do you have Santa Claus theology? Hey, you should tell them about the gift that they can give or receive this year if they haven't already. Good idea, Zane. If you want to share a gift with someone this year that exceeds anything that we could ever afford, God has a message that you can play a part in sharing with friends or family who may have never heard of this good news. Remember that story about a famous baby in a manger that wise men came to see? His name is Jesus, and he is God's Christ and Son who paid for the sins of the world, including yours and mine, with his own life so that he could offer to you, me, and everyone else eternal life as a free gift. Jesus' death on the cross left nothing for you or I to pay to receive this gift, and his resurrection proves that what he is offering is within his power and authority to give. Jesus said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." He also said, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? Jesus guarantees eternal life to whoever believes in him for that free gift. Do you believe him? If you do, you have received that gift, and there's no return policy. It's yours forever. Merry Christmas.